Greetings, I am RJB, and this is RJB's YouTube Casts Starcraft channel. I've screwed that up. That aside, let's get into the game. And this is going to be another Terran versus Zerg. As someone requested about a week ago that I cast a couple more Terran versus Zergs because they apparently really seem to like the matchup. And considering that there aren't honestly that many Terran versus Zergs on my channel, I thought, hey, why not inflate the number a little bit by adding on some really nice Terran versus Zerg replays from both the Western scene and the Korean fastest scene. In this particular case, we've got a replay from the Korean scene between Navy Cong. Navy is the clan, and Cong is the player. And here we've got Moir. Moir. I'm not sure how to pronounce it because it's Korean and the Korean phonetic language works differently from the Romanized one, but I'm just gonna go for Moir against Navy Cong. I've got no idea how these two players specifically play the game, but it should be rather interesting because I do know that both players are pretty good. At least that's what I'm assuming. I know that Cong is pretty good. I've seen him play before. I've seen a replay of his before, but he was playing on Protoss, so I have no idea how his Terran is. And even if his Terran versus Protoss was good, it doesn't mean that his Terran versus Zerg is good, because the matchups are somewhat different in their essence. Plus, considering most Koreans don't really play Terran versus Zerg all that often, so they might be less specialized in the matchup. But Moir is already showing us some interesting beats, mixing it up, playing it differently than what we're most of the time used to be seeing in Terran vs. Zerg. Starts off with double hatchery, which is a very greedy start, but it might pay off some dividends later in the game, as he does have a better economy a little bit later on. I also want to just say this. I've got a little bit of a dry throat. I don't know what caused it, but it might be hindering my casting, my ability to speak continuously, the longer this single replay goes on. So that's something to keep in mind, that I might be coughing or just falling to the background randomly because of it. So do keep in mind when I fall, when I disappear into nothingness. This honestly just looks like a very basic team play Zerg start that you would start in public matches, where you place your two hatcheries like this hatchery here, and you've got space for two Sunkens next to each other right here. He hasn't started the gas yet, so he's not planning on going for Hydralisks. It seems he's making two Zerglings, setting them out into the map. I'm starting to wonder if both players know whether it's a random versus random or a picked matchup. I'm not too sure, because this build is not something you would usually see within the context of picked Terran versus Zerg within the Korean series. Even adding on a fourth hatchery, which is very, very greedy. He's being very greedy here, but his greed might just work out, or I'm not too sure, honestly. This Cong is going for a very fast factory, followed by two very fast and early starports. He's not really using those Marines. He's trying to kill that Overlord, but the Overlord, of course, finds safety in the vision of the hill, or the fog of war on the hill. Marines are still fishing for something to kill. A couple of Zerglings are out. Those Zerglings are bigger in number, but that Vulture coming in might just sway the fight into the favor of the Terran here. Though the Terran does seem to be losing a lot of his Marines. Marines are now microing, walking in circles around the Vulture, and eventually the Marines do end up winning, but more Zerglings are already on the way, planning to win the fight in favor of Cong. That single gas there is working out really well for Moir. He's got a Hydralisk then on the way as well. This is honestly looking like a very unorthodox match. But given the fact that Cong went for Vultures and straight into Machine Shop with a Siege Mode, Research, and a tank, and double raids, I'm 100% sure that Moir will be going for very early Hydralisks instead of going for a lair. That's purely based off of seeing this Vulture, which should give him the information that Cong is not investing into Marines whatsoever. He's purely investing into mech. Moir has not scouted the base itself yet, so he is not aware of these two starports, which is honestly a low money map build where you go for a very quick factory, do some harassment with vultures, maybe with the Marines a little bit, you choke up your front. You usually also get, of course, a +1 command center for your natural expansion. And then you got two starports, and you go out and harass the Zergs, Overlords, and possibly the drones as well. But given the fact that Moir has the ability to make Hydralisks rather early on into the game for a Zerg versus Terran, he hasn't even started a lair yet, and it's already 5:20 in. Most of the time, people start their lair really early into the match when they are Zerg against Terran, because tanks are not too kind against Hydralisks or ground forces whatsoever, unless, of course, you have Lurkers with Lurker Swarm. In that case, you would sway the favor in the pendulum in favor of the Zerg. The Terran would then, of course, have to switch over to vessels and different tech to counter the Lurker tech. But as long as that doesn't happen, this looks to be in favor of the Terran. Although, of course, I do have to mention that the Zerg has grown rather big thanks to all the hatcheries he has added on. He's got a lot of drones. He's even surpassing the worker count that Cong has right now. So Cong is actually quite behind on Moir, and Cong is now finally adding on his first command center, but it's quite late into the game. And his base, of course, is rather small. And I haven't really seen those raids deal all that much damage. He's microing them really well, trying to take down some of these overlords, but the overlords are run to safety. He did kill one of them, but a single overlord kill with this much investment into raids is honestly not the payoff you want. You want a bigger payoff. So if the payoff stays this small, those raids are a huge misinvestment. You might be getting some drones here though, although the raids of course only deal a tiny bit amount of damage. As you can see here, there's about 8 damage to deal with their burst lasers on ground forces. And they go down rather quickly to raids because they are also, of course, known as paper planes within the Starcraft scene. Because their health bars are at 120. It's not that much, and I think they are classified as small units instead of large or medium. So they do take the full brunt of the force when they are attacked. They take full damage, no damage reduction because of unit size. That's something to also keep in mind. Cong is just adding onto his choke here, making sure that those Hydralisks and Zerglings will not be breaking through. So both players are just buying themselves a lot of time here. Cong is trying to harass and kill some overlords. There's an overlord right over there that he missed. He's combing out the entire area, trying to find something to kill, but Moir is being smart and keeps all of his overlords within his own base, under the protection of the spores and the Hydralisks. Vessel is, of course, there on the side. Radiate might have been researched. I haven't seen it yet. He does have energy for it, but he's not yet setting it in to radiate those drones. I hope for Moir that he went for a very early burrow upgrade. Otherwise, that vessel might hurt him quite a bit. But as long as that doesn't happen, he seems to be completely fine and dandy. The fact he went for those 7 hatcheries that early on into the match is paying off his dividends. His economy is big. Same worker count as Cong, but Cong, of course, has about 5 or 6 of his SCVs building and constructing production facilities, namely factories right here on the side. He's got tanks on the way, more tanks, more raids. Isn't really diversifying his unit composition at the moment. Stacking his raids quite nice, really great for micro. But once again, nothing is being achieved by either player. Moir is not achieving anything because he has to wait, because he cannot break through this. With all those tanks there behind that depot line, he cannot break the front. So he's more or less forced to sit. Cong, on the other hand, having misinvested his minerals into something that isn't doing anything, is of course also forced to sit and wait. Because he cannot move out, he cannot fight against this entire mass that Moir has acquired and built up to this point out in the open. He is forced to defend. Moir cannot attack. So it's going to take a while before we are going to see any action happening. Moir is being smart and is using burrowed Zerglings on the sides there to get himself vision. So he also can deduce that he does have burrow upgrade. In case a vessel is going to try to attack, vessel is still hanging there on the bottom side. He's trying to draw away Hydralisks to the top side. But Moir is not falling forward. Still has Hylas there on the top side. Cong throws out the scan, sees that there's Hylas on every single side protecting the minerals. So nothing happening there either. It's just a long game of sit and wait. Almost 10 minutes in now. And both players still happily building. Do have to note that Moir hasn't added on a queen's nest yet. He's being quick, he's building quick, he's not being dumb, but I'm not entirely sure what it is he's planning on doing here, because a queen's nest not being made yet at 10 minutes into the game. He's got no hive, his gas is still quite low, his drone count isn't as high as it could have been, given the fact that he's not being abused whatsoever. His hatchery count also quite on the low end. He's just massing up zerglings and hydralisks, which honestly is playing into what Cong is doing, because Cong is just going for a couple of factories and massing out tanks without really putting any consideration or thought into the exact process or plan that he's trying to pull off. He's just trying to defend. In a scenario where Moir had gone for, let's say, Mutalisks, a little bit quicker and had invested less minerals into those Hydralisks, because honestly he's got a lot of Hydralisks he cannot do anything with. He could have thrown out some real nasty punches right here on the front of Cong's base with those Guardians, perhaps with the Mutalisk Micro. Mutalisk Micro, perhaps some Scorches, and Mutalisk Micro with Scorches, of course, is superior to Raid, so that would have worked out really well for him. Vessels, of course, also not that great. Does have to radiate, but if Moir had been able to split up his Mutalisk, for example, those Vessels would not have done all that much. Moir, though, is now trying to re-establish some side vision, putting some Hydralisks here on the side. Overlords there on the top side as well. Yeah, just still nothing happening here. Cong is building onto his base. I honestly expected a way different game when I picked this replay. I expected something way different from this pretty much still made lack of a non-aggression agreement, basically. Both players are agreeing not to be the aggressor. Cong, feeling that he is ready to now aggress, is trying to break the pact. But Moir is at the same time moving out into the middle of the map, and he walks all of his units straight into those tanks. Both players are on 200 supply. It really does look like they both made an agreement to just build up to 200 and then start fighting. Which is definitely working out in favor of Cong right now, because he's got the ground force superiority. Cong evidently does not. He's got Lurker aspect on the way, but doesn't have any Lurkers yet. Cong could honestly end the game here if he pulls off a really good push. But Moir does have the surround on Cong. So if Cong is not cautious enough, he can get attacked from two sides by all these Hydralisks here. The Zerglings there as well. Zerglings and Hydralisks, of course, have a couple of, I wanted to say upgrades, but I don't see any upgrades. He does have attack speed on the way for Zerglings. He's got every single other upgrade on the way as well. Tanks there in the front with the defensive matrix. Now the units are coming in from the back and the front. There's a great pincer move on those tanks that Cong has acquired here on the middle of the map inside of the choke of Moir, but Moir does not have sufficient amount of units to really fight into those tanks, because the tanks are mowing down those Hydralisks so damn quick that it isn't even a challenge for him. All he has to do is siege up, sit still, and doesn't even have to control. He can just go back to his own base and start producing more stuff. Now Raids and Valkyries out on the map trying to kill those Overlords. He tried to use those Overlords to pilot some of those Lurkers into Cong's base, but that would have never worked, because Cong has those Lurkers, he has those Valkyries, has those Lurkers, got the Vessels as well, turrets there on the side as well, so that would not have worked out all that well for Moir. I'm really starting to feel that Moir is definitely not a fastest map one for this one player, but who knows? I've got no idea what he's doing. I've got no idea what he's thinking, at least. Great Aspire he does have finished now, but there's no Guardians. There's no Lurkers. There is no Defiler Mound. Defiler Mound is on the way though, but there are no Lurkers. He's sending out a bunch of Zerglings into the middle of the map, trying to get an edge on those tanks, but the tanks, of course, mowing everything down without effort. There's no effort whatsoever. He's throwing down a Radiate on something. I thought he threw down a Radiate on those drones, but the drones got burrowed, so good reaction there from Moir, preventing himself from losing drones. But his gas count is at the moment very low. Because he's making all those lurkers to prepare himself against the attack, and he's shitting out a bunch of mules as well. But mules are not going to fare well against those raised Goliaths and Valkyries. Of course, vessels in the mix. I want to say their vessels were in the mix, but the vessels seem to have died a little bit earlier. And vessel reproduction is going to take a little while because he only got 2 starports. He does have a lot of factories though, finished up inside of his base. He's very slowly pushing in on Moir. Moir incapable of doing much into it. The fighter mount is now researching Consume. But I think that the Defiler mount might get targeted down by those tanks if Cong does pay himself some attention to the build layout that Moir has. His tech's all on this side, quite exposed, not protected here on the backside. But most players put it here on the backside, are a little bit close to their main. And there it is. Cong sees that he can go for the Defiler mount, kills the Defiler mount. Wraiths and Valkyries trying to kill those Guardians, but the Guardians being protected by the Devourer debuff on the Valkyries and Wraiths is keeping those Guardians alive and happy. It's all going to come down to this single Goliath to try and take down the Guardians, but nope, it's not going to work. So instead, Navy Cong is going to move forward with the scans the Lurkers there on the low ground, and is going to advance deeper into Moir's base. He's going to try to get something. He kills the Sunken, but he loses most of his tanks in the process, and I'm sure he was trying to aim for the Hive there. But in the end, he decides against it, and now he's just going to try to kill the Hydralisk Den there and the Great Aspire to prevent any more Mutalisks and Lurkers from coming out from Moir's Moir. I'm having so much trouble saying his name now. Moir's production. Eventually, all the Guardians and Mules do end up killing all the tanks that Navy Cong had in Moir's base, but Goliaths are now on the way, and Goliaths are the perfect counter against Guardians, Mules, and Devourers. Although those Zerglings are quite good against against Goliaths. But given the fact that Moir lost all of his spires, all of his Hydralisk dens, most of his evolution chambers, had to remake his Defiler mounts, but he cannot make Hydralisks, he can only make Zerglings. He doesn't have a Hydralisk den anywhere whatsoever. He's not making another one either. 2 vessels here on the side, gonna try to be hunting for those drones. Will he get any of those drones, or will those vessels get intercepted? Vessels are getting attacked by the Mules. Vessels radiating, and will they get kills? Alright, all of the drones got burrowed by Moir, so he does have the fast reaction speeds that require you to be successful against vessel play, but if only his sense of build and strategy was as good as his sense of as his awareness and reaction time, because honestly, this is the wackiest, weirdest build I've ever seen in Zerg vs. Terran. I don't want to sound biased, cocky, or all-knowing, but based on my experience from what I've seen, this is a very weird game. Eventually, he does finally manage to get down the Lurker Swarm, but Navy Cong is just going to ignore it. He's just going to walk straight into the base and set up shop here in the top corner, knowing that Moir does not have a Hydralisk Den to make any more. Knowing he's got the armor upgrades and the weapon upgrades to just tank the Lurker Swarm. And there's a couple of Zerglings now coming into the mix under the Swarm, but the tanks have now sieged up, keeping all the Zerglings awake, killing the Zerglings that were there. And now he's even protected by Stark Swarm there, which is really working out against him. Another Radiate's going to go for the drones. No, he's going for Hydralisks there instead of going for the Defilers, but there are no Defilers at the moment here for Moir. Moir is of course making more Defilers, making more Mules, making more Hydralisks. He's going to try to go for the counter attack. But will he have enough time? That's the question, because those Goliaths are pushing in very rapidly. Tanks are on the way as well, following up the Goliaths to end this game once and for all. Navy Cong sets up shop a little bit closer to the main. Lurkers are moving in, the fighters are moving in, but the Lurkers are burrowing up way too far away, and they will achieve nothing whatsoever. If they had burrowed up closer here, if the Dark Swarm had come up a little bit closer, they could have taken out an entire line of tanks, but instead the tanks are completely fine. Does he have the Defiler? The Defiler does have energy. He's now trying to set up shop right on top of those tanks. He does manage to get his tanks, his Lurkers and his Zerglings right down near the tanks. There's 2 Lurkers there, but more tanks are setting up shop on the left side now. So this means that Moir is very slowly being picked apart here by Cong, who is honestly now displaying a really good TVC. He's being very aware of where the tech that Moir has is located. They're just going to try to take it all down. He took down the Defiler mount. And now he's just ignoring, he's just shooting at random. Whatever comes into the attack range of those tanks, he is attacking. He did lose his vessels. Vessel there still in the back. Vessel now moving up because those lurkers are threatening the tanks. There comes the scan. Now the lurkers are going to go down. And this looks like a done game for Moir. Radiator comes down with some drones. He burrows the drones just in time. But a couple of those drones did go down because they already had lower HP from earlier radiates. And yeah, I've got no idea what Moir was thinking. And I mean, Cong also played some weird stuff, but Cong had a more solid game plan. A little later in, he just knew that, alright, I screwed up my early phase. I can't do anything with these raids, so I just gotta wall off my entrance and deny Moir access to my base. Just mass up tanks, get some vessels, get Goliaths, perhaps get some Valkyries in the mix as well, which ended up not doing all that much. But once he recognized that he just had to switch to tanks and Goliaths, the game went very, very smooth for Cong. Moir, on the other hand, was doing a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing in a Zerg versus Terran matchup. Like a lot of things. Very late gas, very late lair, massing Hydralisks and Zerglings without any tech support. Like, if you want to go for Hydralisks and Zerglings, 1, you need upgrades. 2, you need tech support. Things like Plague, Dark Swarm, perhaps some Guardians on top of those Zerglings and Guardians, Zerglings and Hydralisks, to take care of those tanks. In which case, the Hydralisks, of course, would serve as protection for the Guardians from things like Raids and Valkyries. But then again, Hydralisks are not that great in a Zerg versus Terran matchup, because as we saw, those tanks just mowed them all down without effort. Same for the Zerglings. Zerglings are great if you mix them up with the correct units. For example, throw some Ultralisks, combine them with the Zerglings. Add some Lurkers and combine them with the Zerglings and the Ultralisks. And of course, add in the Dark Swarm. You can even throw in the Queen and Snare to slow whatever is trying to run away from your Ultralisks or your Lurkers or your Zerglings. But given the scenario, or given the condition, that you do not create the right circumstances for your units to flourish, which would in this case be, of course, the right unit combination. Without the right unit combination, without the right execution, without the right plan ahead, without hitting the right timings of requiring to have specific units, this is going to be what happens. The game did take a little longer because Moir did have a lot of production, did have a lot of units, which made it a little bit of a longer process for Cong to win the game. And also have to admit, Cong threw away some of his units very recklessly. Moir never hit any of the beats he had to hit in order to win. He was just winging it, improvising something that is not effective. And it's, I might be coming in very hard on Moir here, but this is like, yeah, this is just an example of don't do this. I cannot say anything else, but don't do this. Cong didn't play an exciting match, but he did what he had to do. Even though it wasn't exciting, wasn't fun to watch for the first 10 minutes, he did what he had to do. Moir played a boring Zerg. I will just say it straight out. And he didn't do what he had to do in order to win. Well, that's where I'm going to end my rambling. The rambling is almost as long as the replay itself. About 20 minutes of rambling, 20 minutes of replay. But I hope you enjoyed this game, regardless of the end result, regardless of the quality of strategy that we've witnessed. And I hope I kept you entertained. But I'm going to upload this regardless. So thanks for watching.